Valari moved like a shadow through the crowded market. Her robes were torn, her feet bare, and her stomach growled like a wounded beast. She had not eaten for 3 days. Her blue skin was pale, and her sharp alien eyes darted from one stall to another, searching for something, anything she could grab. The market was loud and full of humans, traders, and aliens of many kinds. Lights blinked. Guards walked with shock batons. Drones hovered above, watching every move. Valari knew the rules. No stealing, no begging, no second chances. She passed a food stall where hot bread steamed in the air. Her mouth watered. She paused, looking around. The seller was busy yelling at another customer. A small loaf sat at the edge of the counter. Her hand moved fast. She grabbed the bread, slipped it under her robe, and turned to leave, but a loud beep echoed above her. Alert, theft detected. Subject, Class C alien female, the drone's voice called. Valari froze. 2 security bots rolled toward her. Red lights flashed on their metal bodies. The crowd stepped back. Some laughed. Others whispered. The vendor pointed, shouting, "That thief! She's always crawling around here like a rat." The bots grabbed her arms and pulled her forward. A stun shock hit her shoulder, and she fell to her knees. The bread rolled onto the dusty ground beside her. Valari looked up with fear. One of the guards approached. He wore a black uniform and had a cruel smile. "You know the punishment," he said coldly. "First theft, arm removal. That's the law." Valari gasped. "Please, no, I was hungry, just hungry." The guard ignored her. A metal platform extended from a nearby wall. A clamp rose, ready to hold her arm in place. A laser blade buzzed. Warming up beside it, the crowd watched. Some seemed curious. Others turned their heads. No one cared. She was just another alien. Worth nothing. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Her body shook. This was it. Her life had been pain, running, hiding. Now it would end with a scream, and only one arm. Suddenly, "Stop!" The voice rang out like thunder. Everyone turned. A man pushed through the crowd. He was human, tall and broad-shouldered, with messy brown hair and oil stains on his shirt. His eyes were sharp. His hands were rough from hard work. He stepped in front of the guard and held up a small credit chip. "I'll pay for the bread, right now." The guard frowned. "This is not your concern, citizen." "It is now," the man replied. "She's with me." Valari stared, confused. Who was this man? The guard looked at him carefully. "You're lying." "I'm not," the man said. "She's my assistant. She got lost in the crowd. She didn't mean to steal." The guard stepped back. The drone scanned the chip and beeped. Fine paid. Theft charge cleared. The clamp and laser shut down. Valari couldn't believe it. Her body was shaking, but her arm was still there. The man walked over to her and held out his hand. "Come on, let's get out of here." She hesitated. Then slowly, she reached out. He pulled her to her feet. They walked away from the market. The crowd moved aside, silent now. No one stopped them. After a few blocks, Valari spoke. "Why did you help me?" The man looked ahead. "Because I've been hungry too." She was quiet for a moment. "What's your name?" "Jonas. Jonas Creel. Mechanic." "I'm Valari," she whispered. They walked in silence again. Jonas stopped near a building made of scrap metal and old ship parts, a small workshop. "Come inside, rest, you look like you'll fall over." Valari looked at the workshop, then at Jonas. She had trusted no one for years, but something in his voice felt different, kind, and for the first time in a long time, she followed. Valari sat on a cold metal bench inside the workshop, her hands wrapped around a cup of warm liquid. It wasn't food, but it was something. Jonas moved around the room like he belonged there, tools in one hand, a cloth in the other, wiping grease from his fingers. The room smelled of oil, metal, and something old, like forgotten machines and tired dreams. But it was safe, quiet. No drones, no guards, no one shouting at her. She kept looking at Jonas. He hadn't asked for anything, He hadn't locked the door. He just handed her a cup and said, "Sit." His hands were rough, scarred, and strong. The hands of someone who worked, not someone who commanded. He didn't wear rich clothes or flash credits. His shirt had holes. His boots were worn. Still, he had stepped into danger for her. No one had ever done that. "I don't understand," Valari said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why did you lie for me?" Jonas didn't look at her. He was tightening a bolt on a broken engine. "Because you looked like someone who needed help. That's all." "That's not a reason. You could have walked away. Most people do." Looked at her now, eyes steady. "I don't like watching people suffer," he said. "Especially when I can stop it." Valari looked down at her hands. They were thin, dirty, and trembling. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." He stood up, walked to a shelf, and pulled out a sealed packet. He tossed it to her. "Food bar. Not fancy, but it won't kill you." Valari caught it, surprised. She opened it carefully, like it might vanish if she blinked. The first bite made her eyes water. Her stomach hurt, not from the food but from remembering how long it had been. Jonas sat across from her now, resting his arms on the table. "You running from something?" She hesitated, then slowly nodded. "Everyone is," he said, almost, to himself. "I used to work for the Keveron Assembly, big tech company, built parts for warships, good money. Then I saw what they did with the things I built." He leaned back, eyes looking at the ceiling. "I left. Now I fix things for the people no one notices." Valari listened. She didn't know what made her trust him. Maybe it was the way he didn't ask too many questions. Maybe it was his hands. Hands. That fixed, not broke. "I was taken from my world," she said. "Years ago. Slave ship. They trained me to clean, serve, stay silent. But I ran. Got lucky. Ended up here. And then you got caught stealing bread," Jonas said softly. Valari nodded. "There's something else," she added. "They put a tracker in me, my old master's. It's in my arm, buried deep." Jonas frowned. "Tracker?" She rolled up her sleeve. The skin near her shoulder was swollen and bruised. A small metal bump could be seen under the flesh. "They always know where I go," she whispered. "No matter how far I run." Jonas leaned closer, inspecting it without touching. "I've seen this type," he said. "Military grade. Pain spike if you try to cut it out wrong." Valari's voice cracked. "I tried once. Nearly lost the arm." Jonas looked serious now, focused. "I can remove it, but I'll need time, tools, and you'll need to trust me." She looked at him with wide eyes. "Why would you do that?" He stood, walking toward the back of the workshop. "Because no one helped me when I needed it. Maybe I can do better than they did." She didn't move. Couldn't speak. Her chest felt heavy, like something inside was breaking apart, not from pain, but from relief. For years she had been hunted, starved, and forgotten. But now, in a dusty workshop, with a strange human and a broken food bar in her hand, she felt something new. Hope. Valari woke up in the sound of soft humming, old engines, wires buzzing, metal softly shaking as if the building itself was alive. She had fallen asleep on a workbench wrapped in an old blanket that smelled of rust and something like cinnamon. It wasn't comfortable, but it was the first night in months she hadn't dreamt of running, of chains, or of the laser blade that once hovered above her arm. She looked around slowly. The workshop was full of strange things. Old spaceship wings, broken robot arms, half-melted control panels. Jonas had collected trash from across the galaxy, but somehow turned it into something that felt like home. In the corner she saw him, Jonas Creel, bent over a glowing work table, adjusting tiny wires through a magnifying lens. His hands moved with skill, calm but fast, like a doctor, like a fighter, like someone who knew how to survive. She stood up slowly, not wanting to make noise, but her foot kicked over a metal cup. It clanged loudly. Jonas looked over and smiled. You're up. That's a good sign. Hungry? Valari nodded. Her voice wasn't ready yet. He handed her a bowl of thick stew from a heating pod. She didn't ask what was in it. She didn't care. She ate quickly but tried to look polite. He noticed and chuckled. You don't need to pretend. I've seen worse. I've been worse. After a few minutes, Valari asked, Why don't you sell all these parts? You could be rich. Jonas wiped his hands with a cloth. I could. But selling to the wrong people gets others killed. Most buyers want war tech. I'd rather fix small ships, help people leave this cursed city. She tilted her head. You help others? I try. Not always successful. Valari's eyes scanned the shelves. Among all the junk were small carvings, kids' toys, a cracked photo of a human woman holding 2 alien babies. You have a family? Jonas looked at the photo, then away. Had, he said quietly. Long time ago. The silence was heavy but not uncomfortable. He broke it by saying, I checked your tracker last night. It's not just a locator. It's also a pain controller. Whoever owns it can punish you from far away. And worse. She closed her eyes. I know. I can still remove it, he added. But I'll need to build something to block the signal first. If they feel it shutting down, they'll send someone fast. Then do it, she said. I'd rather die free. Jonas nodded. You won't die. Not on my table. Later that day, Valari helped clean the workshop. She didn't know why, she offered. Maybe she wanted to feel useful. Maybe she just needed something to do other than be afraid. She sorted metal rods, polished old panels, and even fixed a small scanner under his direction. Her hands remembered things, small movements from her past life, before the chains, before the hunger. Jonas watched her. You've got quick hands. Ever worked in a repair yard? No, but I used to help my uncle build field shelters before the slavers came. Jonas didn't ask more, but he did say, You're welcome to stay here, until you decide what's next. Valari looked at him sharply. You don't think I'll bring trouble? I'm counting on it, he said, smiling. She laughed for the first time. It was small, broken, but real. That night, she sat on the rooftop of the workshop. The stars above the city were faint, hidden behind pollution and blinking tower lights. But she could still see her moon, her people's moon, far away now. A ghost in the sky. Jonas joined her with 2 mugs of warm bitterroot tea. Thinking of home? He asked. I don't know if I even remember it. You will, he said. Jonas, if they come for me again, don't die for me. He looked at her, quiet for a moment. I don't plan on dying, he said, but I do plan on giving them hell. She looked away, blinking fast. The tea warmed her fingers, but his words warmed something deeper. For the first time, she didn't feel like just a runaway. She felt like someone who could fight back. The next morning began with thunder. Not from the sky, but from the sound of metal grinding and sparks flying inside the workshop. Jonas was building something big. Valari watched from the side as he welded thick cables into a strange, box-shaped device. Blue arcs of energy danced around his gloves, and his face was locked in focus. What is that? Valari asked, standing close but careful. Signal dampener, he said. It'll block the tracker's pulse just long enough for me to cut it out without setting off any alarms. She nodded. Her shoulder ached just hearing the word, cut. Her fingers trembled, but she hid them behind her back. You sure you want to do this today? Jonas asked without looking up. If I don't, they'll find me. You said it yourself. The longer it stays in, the more I risk. He stopped and turned toward her. It's not just about removing it. This'll hurt, Valari, more than anything. If I mess up, you lose your arm. If I move too slow, they find us. You need to be sure. She looked into his eyes, tired, rough, but full of something rare. Honesty. I trust you, she said. He blinked, then nodded once. Then let's do this. Jonas cleared a small work table and laid out his tools. He cleaned each one like a surgeon preparing for war. Valari lay down on the table, breathing slowly, trying not to panic. He pressed a cold metal device to her upper arm. This will numb the area. A little. Only a little, she said, forcing a smile. I'm not a doctor, just a mechanic. He flicked on the dampener. A low hum filled the room. The lights flickered. Her arm felt like it was vibrating from inside. Then came the cut. Valari gritted her teeth as the scalpel slid into her flesh. Jonas moved quickly, hands steady. He worked, through layers of muscle, finding the embedded tracker. Each second felt like fire in her bones. She bit down on a piece of cloth. Jonas wiped sweat from his forehead. Almost there. A sudden spark shot out from the tracker. Valari screamed. Her whole body jerked. Jonas grabbed her arm tighter. Don't move. It's trying to fry your nerves. He stabbed a needle into the device, an electric disruptor, and the spark stopped. Then silence. The small metal chip, now burned and cracked, sat in Jonas's hand. It's out, he whispered. Valari was shaking, her face pale, lips bloodied from biting too hard. But her arm was still there. Jonas quickly stitched the wound and sprayed healing foam over the cut. It's over, he said softly. But Valari didn't respond. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Not from pain, but from relief. She had been owned by that tracker for years. Now it was gone. For the first time, she belonged to herself. That night, Valari sat by the workbench, staring at the tracker. I thought it would be bigger, she said. Jonas looked up from his tea. Funny, huh? Something so small can control someone's whole life. She held it between her fingers. I want to destroy it. He nodded. Be my guest. She dropped it into a small crushing press. With one slam of her hand, the tracker cracked and broke into dust. She smiled, a real smile this time, but Jonas noticed something else. A scar on her back. A deep one, just below her shoulder blade, and another across her side. Not from battle. From beatings. You went through hell, he said quietly. Valari didn't answer. She stared at the crushed tracker. I wasn't always like this, she said at last. Before the slavers took me, I was a scholar. I studied stars, I read poetry. She looked at her scarred hands. Now I steal bread and sleep in alleys. Jonas stood up and walked to her. You survived. That means you're stronger than anyone who ever tried to break you, she looked at him. You think so? He nodded. I know so. She didn't cry this time. She just sat still, like a mountain finally finding its roots again. Jonas had just tightened the last bolt on a rusty old hover scooter when he felt the workshop walls vibrate. It was slight, barely noticeable. But to a man who lived among machines, it meant one thing, trouble. He looked up. Valari? He called. She stepped out from behind a curtain, drying her hands after cleaning some parts. Yes? Pack a bag, he said, voice low. We've got company. Just one level above, in the upper district, 3 armored figures walked through, the market with slow, heavy steps. Their black suits were covered in sharp metal plates, and glowing red visors hid their faces. They weren't city guards. They were collectors, mercenaries hired by the same slaver syndicate that had owned Valari. Their job, retrieve runaways, dead or alive. Mostly dead. They scanned crowds, they scanned alleyways, but most of all they followed a signal, a weak one. A tracer echo, a leftover pulse from the tracker Jonas had removed. One collector growled, She's near. The signal's faint but recent, she's healing. The lead one pointed toward the edge of the lower sector. Then we go now. Back in the workshop, Jonas was moving fast. He shoved tools into drawers, cleared memory chips from his machines, and switched off the generator powering the signal dampener. Valari looked confused but followed his orders. They found the old signal, she asked. Probably. I shut it down just in time, but they might have tracked a pulse trail. If they're here, they'll knock first, with explosives. She gripped the strap of a bag tightly. Then we leave. Jonas shook his head. Too late for that. He opened a secret hatch in the wall. Behind it, a tunnel carved into the stone and scrap. A long, narrow path filled with wiring and broken tech. "What is this?" she asked. "Old smuggler route. I kept it sealed for emergencies. Guess what today is?" Valari gave a small grin. "Emergency." Jonas grabbed a small energy pistol and handed her a flashlight. "You go first, I'll follow in 5 minutes." "What?" "No, we go together. If they hit this place hard, they'll expect 2 people running. If I stay back and slow them down, it gives you a clean break." She hesitated. Jonas smiled. "Don't worry, I always have an escape trick." She stared at him for a second, longer, then nodded. "Don't get killed." "Not part of the plan," he said. The collectors reached the edge of the workshop block. They moved like machines, silent, organized, deadly. One of them scanned the building. "She's inside." But the signal cuts off. Could be a trap. Another one raised his gauntlet. "Let's knock." A mini rocket launched from his arm and slammed into the front wall. The blast sent pieces of metal flying. Smoke rose. Fire spread. The neighbors ran screaming. Lights flickered. Inside, Jonas braced himself behind a shield wall of scrap and aimed his weapon. When the collectors stormed in, he fired. Not to kill, but to distract. They returned fire. The air sizzled with plasma shots. The workshop was torn apart, sparks flying, glass shattering, heat boiling through the vents. But Valari was already far inside the tunnel, running, heart pounding, memories flashing, chains, cages, lasers. But this time, she wasn't running alone. She was running for something bigger, freedom. Jonas finally ducked and rolled through a narrow escape tunnel hidden in the floor. The collectors fired behind him, missing by inches. As he crawled through the shaft, he activated a small button on his wrist. Above, the entire workshop erupted in an explosion of fire and white light. The collectors screamed in surprise as EMP waves shut down their suits. The last thing they saw was fire swallowing the building whole. Far at the end of the tunnel, Valari waited. Her breath caught when Jonas appeared, soaked in smoke, his hair burnt at the tips but alive. "You really like explosions," she said, helping him up. He coughed. "They're great for goodbyes." They looked back at the tunnel. Entrance. The workshop, their shelter, their beginning, was gone, burned, buried. Valari felt pain, but also something else. Clarity. It was never home, was it? She asked. Jonas shook his head. "No, just a safe stop. Home is something we still have to build." She nodded. "Then let's start walking." Side by side, they disappeared into the shadows of the lower city. But now, the hunters had tasted fire. And Valari? She was ready to return it. Valari sat on a cold metal bench in an abandoned subway station deep below the city's lower sectors. The lights flickered. Rats squeaked in the corners. But this place had one thing she hadn't felt in a long time: safety. Jonas stood a few feet away, mapping out a star chart on an old hollow table. His shirt was torn and soot still stained his face from the explosion, but he was alive. And thinking. Valari wrapped her arms around herself. "You think they survived the blast?" Jonas didn't look up. "Probably. Collectors are built tough. But it bought us time." "How much?" He finally met her eyes. "Not enough." She frowned. "So what's the plan?" He tapped a blinking star on the map. "Out. Off this planet. Gone for good." Her heart jumped. "You have a ship?" "I have parts of one," he said, smiling faintly. "Enough to build something that flies. I've been collecting them for years. Didn't think I'd ever use them again." Valari moved. Closer. "Where is it?" Jonas slid a smaller map toward her. It showed a junkyard outside the city. Zone 7, covered under layers of trash and scrap. No one ever goes there unless they want tetanus. Valari tilted her head. "And we're going to fly out in something you built from trash?" He raised a brow. "Would you rather get caught again?" She smirked. "Point taken." They set off before sunrise. Valari wore a hooded cloak, blending in with the early morning crowd of waste workers and fuel scavengers. Jonas pushed a cart, filled with broken tech as camouflage. They moved quietly through alleys, avoided cameras, and crossed 3 militia checkpoints using fake ID chips Jonas had made years ago. He wasn't just a mechanic. He was a man with a past. At one checkpoint, a bored guard scanned Valari's face a little too long. She held her breath. Then the scanner beeped green. "Move along," the guard muttered. They did. Only when they were far from the checkpoint did Valari finally exhale. "You're scaring me with how good you are at this," she whispered. Jonas gave her a crooked grin. "Let's just say, I wasn't always on the clean side of the law. Zone 7 looked like the graveyard of dead stars. Old ships lay broken in piles. Rusted engines, shattered wings, half-eaten cockpits. It was a mountain range made of junk, dangerous and forgotten." Valari followed Jonas through narrow paths of sharp metal. They passed a skeleton of a cargo freighter, its bones creaking in the wind. Finally, they stopped at a large pile of scrap shaped like a dome. Jonas pulled off a rusted sheet of metal and revealed a small hatch. He pressed his palm to the panel. The door hissed open. Inside was a ship. Not pretty. Not clean. But real. Valari stepped inside slowly. The cockpit was small with 2 seats. Lights blinked. Wires hung loose. Panels were still missing. But she felt it. Hope. "You built this yourself?" she asked, amazed. "Mostly. Some parts came from crashed military ships, others I stole." She turned to him. "Can it fly?" "It will," he said. "But we need fuel, a nav core and 2 more heat shields. Without those we burn on exit." She nodded. "Then we get them." The next 2 days were busy. Valari proved to be more than a runaway. She was clever, fast, and knew how to talk. Her way past trouble. Together they visited black markets, backroom traders, and old smugglers who owed Jonas favors. They traded old tech, false promises, and once, a half-working toaster for what they needed. Every night, they worked on the ship. Jonas fixed the engine. Valari reprogrammed the nav core. Their hands got cut. Their bodies ached. But neither gave up, because each part they added wasn't just a ship. It was their freedom. On the 3rd night, Valari stood outside the ship under the open sky. The junkyard was quiet. Jonas stepped up beside her. "You ready?" he asked. She looked at the stars. "I've been ready since the day you paid for that bread." He smiled softly. "This ship doesn't have a name." She thought for a moment, then said, "Call it Second Chance." He nodded. "Fitting." Then both of them heard it, a low hum in the distance. The sound of ships, real ones, fast ones. Jonas looked at her sharply. "They found us." Valari didn't flinch. She stepped toward the ship. "Then we leave. Now." Engines roared in the distance. Searchlights cut through the darkness like swords. 3 black hunter ships dropped into the scrapyard sky, their wings glowing red. Jonas didn't wait. He slammed the hatch of the ship shut and shouted, "Strap in!" Valari slid into the co-pilot's seat. Her fingers danced over the panel, rerouting power, activating systems. The ship rattled as it powered up, but she didn't flinch. Outside, the collectors closed in. They had tracked her signal again, what little remained after the earlier removal. It was faint, but they had followed it like wolves. "They're locking weapons," Valari shouted. Jonas hit the thrusters. "Then we leave before they fire." The Second Chance blasted upward, sending metal and ash flying in every direction. One of the collector ships opened fire, but the old junkyard ship rolled to the side, narrowly dodging the first plasma burst. "We won't survive long in atmosphere," Jonas said. "Get me a nav window. Fast." Valari's fingers moved quickly across the dusty control pad. Plotting course toward Sector Delta, uncharted zones. Another blast hit the rear shield. "Shields down to 62%, she warned. "Good enough," Jonas muttered. "Hold on," With a sudden surge, the ship screamed through the air, breaking clouds as it escaped the gravity pull of the city. One of the collector ships followed. "They're faster," Valari said, "but we're smarter." Jonas grinned. He pulled a lever. The second chance twisted sharply and dove into a debris field, an old orbital dump where broken satellites and rusted parts floated like ghosts. The collector ship followed, but clipped a dead war drone. It exploded. Jonas and Valari watched the fireball fade behind them. Valari let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. They had made it. They were. Free 2 months later, the ship landed on a quiet green moon surrounded by silver lakes and glowing forests. It was peaceful here. No patrols, no slavers, no more running. Valari stepped out onto the soft grass. She closed her eyes and felt the breeze on her skin. Her arm still ached sometimes, but it was hers now, free of chains, free of pain. Jonas stood beside her. His clothes were patched, his beard longer, but his eyes still sharp. "Think this place will hold?" he asked. "For now," she smiled. "And that's enough." They had turned the ship into more than just an escape tool. It was now a rescue vessel, a symbol, a beginning. Every week, they flew to distant colonies, old mines, or broken ships, where other escaped slaves hid in fear. Valari spoke to them, held out her hand, promised them freedom, and they followed her, because she wasn't just another survivor. She had become a light in the dark. One day, while fixing the ship's sensor array, Jonas called out, "Got a message ping, coded, says someone's looking, for help." Valari came running. "Where?" "Outer Belt. Mining colony. Seems like a group of kids and elders. The slavers are circling." She didn't hesitate. "Fuel the ship. We leave in an hour." Jonas smiled. "Thought you'd say that." Later that night, under the stars, Valari stood outside the ship alone. She looked at the scars on her hands, the place where the tracker had once been. She touched it gently, not with pain, but with pride. She whispered, "I was supposed to lose my arm that day, maybe even my life, but a stranger stepped in. She looked at the ship, and now I step in for others." When the second chance lifted off the moon again, it wasn't running away anymore. It was running toward danger, toward people who needed saving, and at its helm was the woman who once stole a loaf of bread. Now, she was feeding freedom to the entire galaxy.